Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Sunoco Fresh Virtual Scrappy Hour with Chef Joel Gamron. Today's webinar is coming to you from the Sunoco Fresh Innovation Studio at Clemson University in South Carolina and from Joel's Kitchen in Seattle, Washington. My name is Ann Barr, and I'm the Executive Director of Sunoco Fresh at Clemson University. Fresh was established in partnership with Sunoco Products Company to bring together the best of industry and academia to develop safe, secure, and sustainable solutions across the food value chain. We're pleased to be hosting Clemson's inaugural Food, Packaging, and Sustainability Summit in February, along with today's sneak peek. Just a few logistics before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded, and to ensure good sound quality, all attendees have been muted. If you have any questions or comments at any time during today's presentation, please type them into the Q&A box. We will moderate the questions at the end of the presentation, and only the presenter and the host can see the questions you submit. The video recording of this webinar will be uploaded to the Sunoco Fresh YouTube channel, as well as emailed to all attendees within 48 hours. And now it's my pleasure to introduce today's presentation. As we heard in yesterday's sneak peek with Deloitte Consulting, a number of trends have resulted from COVID that are expected to continue for quite a while. Two of these trends are cooking from home and a continued interest in sustainable food practices. And our guest, Chef Joel Gamron, is the perfect person to combine these trends into a captivating presentation. As the host of A&E's hit series Scraps, Chef Gamron is one of the nation's most well-known sustainability storytellers. And although we come from different places, Joel's story and the Fresh story connect through a shared passion for optimizing the food value chain. Joel is a graduate of both the Culinary Institute of America and the Culinary Institute of Florence. He also spent over 10 years as a national chef for Sur La Table. In 2018, Joel put his passion on paper with the release of his book, Cooking Scrappy, published by HarperCollins. Cooking Scrappy inspires home cooks to turn scraps into deliciously amazing meals. Joel also makes monthly appearances on NBC's Today Show, sharing his recipes and sustainability tips to viewers worldwide. Joel has a special gift for empowering people to make a difference in the environment by starting at home in their kitchens. Joel, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm thrilled to turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Ann. And I am so excited to be here. Go Clemson, go Sunoco. Thank you so much for having me. There's a million people who are getting into the space of food waste. Very few of them are as committed and dedicated to the work that I've seen, and the team at Clemson, Christy, everyone who I've been involved with over the past couple of months and kind of bringing this to life. So it's been really cool to be a part of that team, see the process from the inside, and now see it come to life and be able to cook with all of you today. So welcome. As Ann said, I'm coming to you from Seattle, Washington. I wish I could say it was beautiful. It's raining outside. And I have turned my garage into a little kitchen studio, which is important to the fact here. We're going to get to that. But I am a waste-free chef. I have, like Ann said, I had a cooking show called Scraps and a cookbook called Cooking Scrappy. And my job is to look at the ingredients that are normally being thrown away and somehow make them delicious, amazing, and inspiring. My goal in life is to, kind of widen and lessen the gap between the amount of food we're throwing away, which in America is about 40% of the food that we produce is being tossed, to the idea that 1 out of 8 people in America go to bed hungry. So when I found out that math and when that kind of hit my radar, it just didn't make sense to me. How are we throwing away billions of dollars of food? And meanwhile, people are going to bed not knowing where their next meal is coming from. So that's what kind of started my journey on this entire thing. If you've ever cooked before professionally, or if you know a chef, in the restaurant business, we throw nothing away. I worked in Italy. I worked in some of the best restaurants in America. No restaurant looks at a peel or at a carcass or at anything as waste. We see that as potential, because if we're unable to sell that, if we're able to sell that, that is profit. And the home kitchen's a little different. We waste a lot. And I don't know why. I mean, there's been a lot of studies around this idea of, if you think about our grandparents during the Depression, they really had this muscle of putting everything to use. But then it kind of skips some generations and we started wasting a lot more. So the goal when I get into the kitchen, and especially in a place like this where I get to inspire people, is to kind of bring us back to that time of how do we let nothing go to waste? When we look at something and we're about to throw it away, how do we see dollar bills? How do we see the impact that it has on the actual world and the earth and sustainability? Because every single scrap we throw away does impact the way we live. And so that is what I'm here to demonstrate today. I wanted to take something that is completely ordinary, something that I think all of us throw away, and make it into something incredible. And I figured if I can do that live for you right here with Clemson, then maybe I can convince a couple of you that there's some serious potential here. And when we talk about packaging, we talk about food trends, there's so much space in this as well. I've seen everything from banana peels being used in packaging, potato peels. I've seen pineapple rinds, like pineapple leather. There's so much potential. So I really believe anyone who can look at waste and trash as potential, there's a big market and big opportunity in the future. So I'm super excited about that. Before we dive into the demo, I do want to pose a challenge. I thought it would be fun to play a little game with you guys. So we're going to do something called Stump the Scrap. And what it means is during this demo, if you just put your comments in a little comment bar below during the demo, I want you guys to think about what ingredient you typically throw away when you're cooking. And if you can stump me, meaning I can't come up with a use for that ingredient, then I will send you a cookbook signed personally by me. So fun little game. I've only been stumped a couple of times, so we'll see if this group can do it. But it'll be fun. So just think about it as we're going through this. But today, like I said, our scrap that we're focusing on is the ordinary, totally wasted pickle juice. You open up the fridge, you've used all the pickles, and all that's left is this murky water brine thing that just finds the drain every single time. But to me, I look at this jar and I see liquid gold. This, to me, there's so many uses, so many different ways you can put it to use and really heighten your kitchen game. So this is going to be the base to everything. We're going to start, there's 4 different ways we're going to kind of put it to use. We're going to start with a really basic one, which is a vinaigrette. I want you guys to think about who actually makes a dressing at home. If you don't make your own dressing, you gotta start doing that because it is so easy. So I've got a bowl here, and in a bowl, I've got a little bit of ground mustard. Really, really simple. And instead of vinegar, I'm gonna use a drop of my pickle juice. If you think about what's in pickle juice, right? It's got spices, it's got vinegar, it's got sugar, it's got everything you need for a really good vinaigrette. And so it already is kind of there. And so by putting it into a salad dressing, it's kind of genius. So I'm just whisking that with the mustard. I'm gonna add a dash of maple syrup. That was a lot of maple syrup, don't tell, don't tell. It's salad, it's supposed to be healthy. So I'm gonna whisk that up, and then I'm gonna add just a couple of drops of olive oil. And in the beginning, when you whisk, you just want olive oil to kind of go in slowly so it emulsifies. And when you whisk, by the way, don't whisk in circles, whisk side to side. That's what really kind of keeps the oil as one with, in this case, the pickle juice, which is great. So you can see it's getting thicker, shinier, more viscous, which is gonna wrap around the actual salad itself. And that right there doesn't even need any salt. I'm just gonna taste it. It's so good. It's so good. I'm telling you, the pickle juice itself already has dill, it has coriander, it has garlic. So the potential in that jar is crazy. This salad dressing will be good in the fridge for up to, I would say, at least a month. And it might break, meaning that the oil might separate. You just gotta give it another little shake, drizzle that over the salad. Amazing. And it also makes an incredible dressing. So first use for pickle juice, make salad dressing. Absolutely make it every time. The next use, I'm just gonna kind of move the pickle juice over, is we're gonna do what's called a repickle. And a repickle is exactly what it sounds. We're gonna use the pickle juice to re-pickle vegetables. So when would you want to re-pickle vegetables? Well, maybe you have some carrots in the fridge that you roasted a couple of days ago and they're starting to go bad. Maybe you have some broccoli that's starting to get some brown spots. Maybe you have an onion that's been sitting around. Anytime you want to quick pickle something, this is how you do it. So it's really simple. I grab a jar, and this jar has some chili flakes and a pinch of salt in it. And I literally am just going to fill it up with pickle juice. Really, really simple. You can add anything to this jar from a spice component, but you can see how spicy. I'm going to pull this really close to the camera so you guys can see the color on this, because I don't even think the top-down camera is going to get it. But you can see the chili flakes, the pickle juice. So this is a brine. And what a brine means is there's enough acidity in it, there's enough sugar in it to really store things and not let bacteria in. So whatever you put in this jar now is going to last that much longer, right? Before there was refrigeration, this is how we kept food around. And it really, if you've ever had a good pickle, it's a great way to go. So I'm going to add some stems of dill. Using the stems of herbs is genius. If you've ever peeled parsley or taken the actual green bits off rosemary, the stems themselves, if you just kind of open them up, they've got tons of flavor, an amazing aroma. So I'm just going to sneak that into the jar. I've got some beautiful red onions that I just had lying around. So I'm just going to slice these up. And then I've got a cucumber that was looking really sad. You know when you have those cucumbers that's almost soft? That's what I've got here. It's like a soft cucumber. So I'm going to do kind of an onion and cucumber pickle, but I'm just going to literally load up this jar. And you see these when you go to restaurants, or if you go into a person's house who cooks a lot, you see pickles, because people know if you cook, you know there's nothing like homemade pickles. They're so good. So I'm just going to slice up some cucumbers, nice and thin. And I'm just going to add this to the jar. Again, cauliflower would be great in here. Like I said, carrots, parsnips, butternut squash, anything. I just throw in a lid, and you have a re-pickle. We reused that pickle liquid and made our own gorgeous pickled onions. These you want to let sit for at least 3 days. They're going to get sour. They're going to get more crunchy. That over a taco, that over a salad, that over a grilled piece of fish or chicken, to die for. Really, really good. All right, so next up, we've used it in a dressing. We've used the pickle juice in a re-pickle. We're gonna move it on over, and we're gonna handle some meat for a second here. So I've got a pork chop. I hope you guys like pork chops. Not sure if you do. In the cooking world, pork chop is kind of thought to be a really dry piece of meat. If you overcook pork, which is very easy to do, very chewy, a little bit hard to get through with the teeth. And so there is a way to keep it moist, and that's called brining. And you've probably heard this a lot around Thanksgiving time when you put your Thanksgiving bird into a brine. What brining does is it takes out a lot of the moisture from the actual meat, and it replaces it with even more moisture, plumping it up and making it juicy. So you can actually use your pickle juice to do this. So I've got a pork chop just sitting in a bowl, nothing else in it, and I'm literally just gonna pour my pickle juice over the actual pork itself. And again, remember what's in that pickle juice. There's salt, there's sugar, there's spices. Everything is already happening in there. So we let this sit for up to 24 hours. What's gonna happen is, if you've ever had ceviche, which is like that raw fish dish, the actual pork is gonna turn white. It's gonna start to cook inside the vinegar mixture. If you let it sit there long enough, you'll literally cook the pork, but it's gonna also start to tenderize the pork. You can do this with chicken. You can do this with beef. You can do this with fish. So many different things. The power of the pickle juice is that the vinegar breaks down the meat, making it incredibly juicy, so flavorful, and really, really special. So I've got that right there. I'm gonna turn on my stove here. I've got one that I kind of did ahead of time. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil. Check out, by the way, I'm gonna hold this up to the camera, my Sunoco Fresh olive oil. Let's see if we can go to the top down cam. Michael, can you do that? Oh, there we go, beautiful. So I've got my cool little logo right there, love it. So I'm adding olive oil in. I did one pork chop ahead of time just so you guys can kind of see the finished product. But I've got my other pork that's just sitting here. Imagine this being 24 hours later. So I'm literally gonna take this pork out, right onto a plate, or in this case, a cutting board. I'm gonna add a little salt over the top of it. When you salt anything, you guys, always salt from up high. I'm just gonna salt one side and lay it right in. Then I'm gonna salt the other side, and this is gonna cook about 4 minutes per side until you have something that looks as gorgeous as that. Incredible. This is legitimately 20, 30% more juicy than your average pork chop. So imagine, you know, pickle juice, brine, fried chicken. Imagine doing a pork roast. Imagine doing a huge prime rib. All of that soaked in pickle juice is genius. So 3 down. We have used pickle juice. Pickle juice is a superhero right now. And I think this is the idea that we want to kind of go through is, again, this is a underdog. Everyone overlooks pickle juice. No one looks at pickle juice and goes, oh, I'm craving pickle juice today. But 3 different ways where we've put pickle juice to use and really turned it into something transformative and incredible. Speaking of transformative and incredible, especially during this time of year, I need to have a cocktail. When it's raining outside, my kid's at daycare, maybe it's time to have something, and it can be virgin. In this case, we're doing a virgin version. If it's not virgin, you can always give it a splash of vodka, but we are gonna make a scrappy Bloody Mary. This is scrappy hour, so we have to do something to drink here. So I've got some tomatoes, and I actually used tomato seconds. If you've never heard of seconds, seconds is the second choice when it comes to fruits and vegetables and produce. When you go to the farmer's market, you can look at their plums and say, hey, do you have seconds? And usually the farmer will reach underneath their actual table and pull up some plums that are maybe busted open. Maybe there's a scratch on them, and they'll sell it to you. I mean, a lot of times they'll just give it to you for free. But what's genius about that is, who cares if they're busted open? They can absolutely be turned into jam, jellies, preserves, pickles. There's so many different things. So these are tomatoes that no one wanted. I asked my farmer, he gave them to me. They were kind of busting at the seam, and I cooked them down with a little bit of onion and some celery seed, and then I blitzed it in a blender so I had this kind of thick tomato base, right? Really, really, really simple. One thing I want to think about and kind of talk about is that idea of seconds. There's a lot of reasons why an ingredient might not go to the grocery store. One of my closest friends in this business is a company called Imperfect Foods out of San Francisco, California. They're amazing, and they rescue food that would normally go to the dump because it's not set and not ready and not it's not likable by consumers, I guess you could say. It's not shoppable. So depending on something's look, shape, color, size, all those things go into why something would go to the grocery store and why something not. People don't realize that a bell pepper, if it doesn't stand up on its own and if it falls over, it actually has to go in the trash because grocers cannot stack them on top of each other and make those big towers. So things like that, where to me, it's just crazy, right? It's a bell pepper. If it doesn't stand up, it should still be totally usable. So tomato seconds falls into that place where just because they're a little busted, they're a little bit juicy, doesn't mean there's not incredible potential in each one of those tomatoes. So I've got our base here. I cooled it down after I blitzed it. And then I've got some horseradish. Horseradish, you guys can probably find just at the grocery store in a jar if you can't find it fresh like this. But I like to find it fresh. And then if you ever have one of these are called a microplane. Unbelievable kitchen tool. It's good for cheese and chocolate, but also really good for grating horseradish. So I'm gonna grate the horseradish into my tomato mixture here. And Michael, you might wanna go to the top down. There you go. So you guys can see. Obviously, horseradish is super spicy, really fragrant. If I put my nose to it, it clears your sinuses every single time. Woo, it's good stuff. I love horseradish. But grated fresh, it's really, really special. Even this horseradish, it was funny. When I was trimming this horseradish, meaning the outside right here, if you guys can see, I was taking it off with a knife. I saved these and I put it in vodka. And that way my horseradish kind of trimmings go into the vodka, they infuse the vodka, and now I have a horseradish vodka, which would be obviously really great in this Bloody Mary, but it would also be so good in so many other drinks. All right, so that's going in. The next thing I wanted to do is add a big pinch of salt. And then I've got some limes. So one really cool tip with the lime is you can squeeze it, but you get 40% more juice if you bite it. And the juice comes out. So bite the back of your limes. It's my one tip of the day that you won't forget. You'll get a lot more juice out. You look silly, but it's worth it. So a couple squeeze of limes. And then here's a scrap that everyone throws away, which is celery, the inside of celery and celery leaves. These are like little herbs, these little celery leaves. They're fresh, they're bright, they're vibrant, they're incredible in salads. So what I'm gonna do is kind of click off these amazing stalks, put them all right in to my actual Bloody Mary, mix it all around, and then I'm gonna add some pickle juice just to top the whole thing off, right? And the pickle juice is gonna add some brightness, some brininess, some saltiness that really makes this Bloody Mary sing. And what you can even do is just take the whole Bloody Mary, here, grab these, put them right into the pickle juice jar, and there you go. A little bit of ice, and this thing is, I mean, I don't know who's drinking that, but I would have that all day. That is a Bloody Mary, definitely fit for pandemic times. I love it. Virgin Bloody Mary, pickle juice brined pork chop, re-pickled vegetables, and a beautiful pickle juice dressing. We took something no one wanted and transformed it into something that everyone would want. And again, this has been kind of old news in restaurants. This is what we're taught as young chefs, but in the home kitchen, it's something that's been forgotten. So no matter what business you are in, no matter how you're approaching kind of the food waste issue, this is the future. Looking at food waste as potential. You know, I started by talking about that I'm in my garage. And I think about this garage as kind of a comparison of what we do with these ingredients. This was totally overlooked. I didn't even park my car in here. It was just spider webs and a little bit of a dirty ground. And then since COVID, I've turned it into this amazing little kitchen studio that I'm able to work out of. That's what we approach every single ingredient with. How do you use what you already have and make it incredible? So that's what I'm all about. That's what Cooking Scrappy is all about. And I know I'm going to pass it back to Ann. We're going to talk through some questions and then go back to Stump the Scrap. But thank you so much for staying tuned for this pickle juice demo, and excited to talk to you guys more. So Ann, back to you.
All right, Joel, this is actually Christy. I'm going to go ahead and pose some questions to you.
Okay.
The first one we have is, when you reuse the pickle juice, can those pickles be canned in a water bath to make them shelf stable again?
Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. Yep, you could just can them like you would anything. As long as the seal's on tight, it has enough pH and enough acidity and sugar that it will be totally preserved.
Awesome. Okay, next question. What ingredients and/or equipment would you suggest for college students who want to prepare meals with nutrient density and variety without extreme costliness?
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I'm a big crock pot guy. Huge. If you guys can have those in the dorms, or if you're not in the dorms, crock pot is one of those things you can set it and forget it. I love braising. But if there was anything that I would suggest you have, it'd be a really good nonstick pan and just a little hot plate. With those two things, you can probably cook, I don't know, 75% of the things out there. So I'm big of kind of stovetop cooking. I know air fryers are really affordable right now, and a lot of people are liking those. Very healthful way to cook. Super good way to get a crust on it. I just played with my first one the other week, loved it. But those would be kind of the big ones. Just a little hot plate and a nonstick is all I need.
Awesome. This one, we're going to put it here. It could probably go in this or stump the scrap. But what can you do with cheese that has gone moldy? This person says she cuts off the moldy part and uses the rest, but sometimes the mold part is quite big.
Totally. So this is a really good question. And this kind of goes back to this idea that, you know, we've kind of lost our way of when is something good to eat and when is something not good to eat. And we forget that as humans, we have all the tools we need inside of us to recognize those things. So number one, smell the cheese. Does it smell off? Does it smell, you know, old socksy? We all know what off smells like. You don't even need to describe it. You get it. So use your nose, use your eyes. You start seeing the blue mold around it, right? That's a good sign. It's not good. You can even touch it. and feel for the texture. Does it feel watery? Does it feel soft, or does it feel tight? So with cheese, mold does not puncture the inside of the cheese. It does if you wait long enough, but you can absolutely cut the outside of the cheese off and leave the inside, and it's totally usable. Almost all my cheese in the fridge has kind of those blue dots going around it. You just nick it off, that goes into the actual compost, and then you use the cheese. I will say, if you have a hard cheese rind, like a cheddar or a Parmesan, you can cut that off, put that into a pot of beans, into a chili, into a sauce, and Parmesan rind in that. Oh my gosh, you fish it out later, but whew, it gives it a creaminess and a saltiness like you wouldn't believe. So good. Good question.
Okay, other than what you just mentioned with the slow cooker, what are your other favorite cooking gadgets?
So I'm not a big gadget fan. I would say, when it comes to, let's just talk about knives, and I'll give you kind of my top 5 things. So knives in general, you don't need every sort of knife. You don't need to go get like a big pack of knives. There are 3 knives you need. You need a chef knife, you need a small knife, also called a paring knife, and then you need a serrated knife, the bread knife with the teeth on it. If you have those 3 knives, you're good. You literally don't need anything else unless you're a chef. So that's number 1, invest in 3 really good knives. I do love the microplane. Like I said, I use this for lemon zest, Parmesan, chocolate, so many different things. I even grate nuts over the top of things. So this is a great tool. I love what's also called a mandolin, which is like a little kind of long plate guy, and you shave vegetables on it. I'm not a big salad fan with lettuces. I like salads that have shaved raw vegetables like carrots, cauliflower, all that good stuff. So I use that all the time to give me that texture. So look up something called a mandolin. You got to have a good whisk. You got to have big bowls. But for the most part, like I said, a nonstick pan, a really good heat source, and you're golden. What else out there?
All right, what are your favorite shortcuts for making a quick meal for a busy weeknight?
Ooh,
You've
that's
got
a good one.
At home. I know you've had to do this.
I've had to do this a lot. So good shortcuts for a busy meal. So first of all, I have a series that if you want to Google, it's called Ready for Seconds. So Google Ready for Seconds, Joel Gamron, and it's 15-minute meals shot live. So if I don't make it in 15 minutes, you know it. It's all completely shot live, so it's proven to be very fast. But the tips are a couple things. Number 1, when you get home from school or from work, turn on your oven, 400 degrees, and get some water boiling, even if you don't know what you're cooking, because the water boiling and the oven getting turned on is usually half the battle. Then you look at what you have and you start cooking right there and then, but you already have a hot oven and you have water boiling. So most things can be cooked literally in 15 minutes or less. I also love looking at Sundays as a prep day. I'm one of those guys that make frittatas on Sundays and then put them in little cups, like little muffin tins, and bake them and then freeze them. And then every single morning I just pop one out, reheat it on the stove or put it in the toaster, and you're good to go. So it's good to have one prep day a week where you get a lot done, and then you kind of use that throughout the week. That's the fastest shortcut I can give you. The last thing I would say also has to do with scrappiness is make best friends with your freezer. Freezing is actually becoming a really, really popular trend again. I think everyone always thought as freezing as maybe low quality or it's not up to snuff. But your freezer is a phenomenal way to save your scraps, to save food that you're not eating. So make best friends with your freezer. Those are a great way to visit your freezer to kind of give yourself a good shortcut in the middle of the week.
All right, thank you. We've got 2 more questions, unless anybody wants to type any more in. What can you do with softened potatoes, the ones that are growing eyes and are a bit old to peel and use for your average recipe?
Oh, well, first of all, even soft potatoes you can use for anything, but think about what you need soft potatoes for. So a potato leek soup would be amazing. Mashed potatoes would be incredible. Gnocchi would be great. So when they have little eyes, which are those little sprouts, all I do is I peel it back, and I don't know if I have my peeler. I don't think I have it here, but the peeler actually has a little digger at the end of it, and you can dig out the little eyes, and they pop right out of the potato, and they're good to go. But I will say, if you want to preserve your potato for much longer, don't store them near anything like an onion or a garlic. They will sprout those eyes about 2 weeks sooner than they normally would. So always store your potatoes in a dry place, by itself. You can even put them in the fridge. Just make sure they're away from the onions and garlic. They will last a lot longer.
Okay, this next one I actually had happen to me the other day, so I'm very interested in your.
Oh, let's bring it, Christy.
Had some raw eggs freeze and crack in my refrigerator. Can you still use them?
That would be a no. And I think it's a great, that's a great one to end on, because a lot of people ask me, how do you know when something is just not okay? And I call it the difference between cooking scrappy and cooking crappy. And here's the idea. If you crack an egg in your fridge and it's just sitting there and it's frozen, let's be honest, are you really going to scrape it off, put it into a pan and scramble it? No, that's a little bit crazy. So use your best judgment. If you have any doubt about anything, it smells off, it feels off, it looks off, use your senses again. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad about it. Throw it in the compost. It will go somewhere good. It's much more important to think of your health first and then think about cooking scrappy. So good question. Do not scrape the egg off the bottom of the freezer and cook with it. It's all good. Good question, though.
Great. Thank you, Joel. So we have quite a bunch of Stump the Chef challenges here.
All right.
All righty. So let's start with the first one, eggshells, since we were on the egg theme.
Yes, eggshells is a great one. So a lot of bodybuilders actually dry out the eggshells at 200 degrees for about 20 minutes in the oven. And I think that kills all the bacteria. I've never done this, but you can put those in a smoothie and they give you a calcium boost, or in sauces. So again, I've never done it, but eggshells are apparently amazing in that smoothie, and it gives you a really, really good kind of immune system hit. I will also say they're phenomenal in your garden. I know a lot of you are nodding because you know what I'm talking about, but taking those eggshells, throwing them out in the garden, whew, your plants will get a nice boost. So so that's what I would do with eggshells. Not a stumper yet. Good question.
Thank you. Though. Okay. Next question, garlic husk or the peel?
Oh, the garlic peel is a great one. Yeah. And if you smell the garlic peel, when you peel a garlic and actually smell the paper, the white paper, it's got tons of aroma and it's really toasty and delicious. So what I like to do is actually just press it into some salt. Leave it sit there for about a week. And what you do is you come back to the salt, and the salt literally smells like garlic. It's unbelievable. It picks up all the aroma, all the flavor notes, and now you've just made your own garlic salt. That on top of any meat, on top of any vegetable, is genius. So use your garlic peels. They're also amazing put into chicken stock, vegetable stocks, all that good stuff.
Great, thank you. Okay, next, let's look at tomato peels and tomato skins.
All right, tomato peels and tomato skins are another one I love making a salt out of. So what I do is a lot of people don't realize this, but recipes call for you to peel tomatoes, which all you do is you just put a little nick in the back of the tomato, you boil it for 30 seconds, you put it in cold water, and the whole peel just slides right off. So what I like to do is put that in the oven for 200 degrees until it dries out to like a tomato chip. And then you put that in a food processor with salt, blitz it a couple times, and you have this red tomato salt. So incredible on salads and soups, I can't even tell you. So tomato salt, amazing, and it also looks beautiful on the plate. So good question on the tomato peel, but that's one of my favorites. So thank you for lobbing that one up.
Yeah, now I know you're on the West Coast, so you're not as close to dinner time as we are, but this is not so good for those of us who haven't eaten yet. Getting pretty hungry here. Okay, next question to stump the chef is cantaloupe rind.
Cantaloupe rind. All right. Well, here's what I might say. You stumped me, but here's what I'll say. I'm very familiar with watermelon rind, which I would pickle the exact same way I pickled these onions and cucumbers. I would cut off the outside kind of shell of the cantaloupe, leaving just the white pith. And that white pith I would actually pickle. It makes it really crunchy, really bright, almost like jicama. But I have to say, Ann, I feel like that's a stumper. We should give that person a prize, because I've never cooked with cantaloupe rinds. That's a good one.
All righty. Let's see, next, onion skins.
Onion skins, treat exactly like I just said to do the garlic skins, although I'll say one more option with this. If you ever make a batter, like a tempura batter or a fry batter, like you're gonna make fish and chips, when you blend the batter itself, if you put your onion skins in it and blitz it in the actual blender, it becomes like this oniony batter, and you can put your fish in there. or your vegetables in there, and it fries up incredible. So that's just another option.
All righty, sounds good. Okay, the choke of an artichoke. You might be giving away
What
two
is it?
points.
What are you guys having over there at Clemson? What's in the water over there at Clemson that you guys are all coming up? I know everyone's coming from all over the country, but that's a good one. The choke of an artichoke, and I have to give that one full credit of a stumper. I don't even know if it's edible, but I'll send a book to whoever brought up that one because that's a good one.
Hey, thank you. All righty. Butternut squash and squash type peels.
Yeah, so squash type peels I would make a stock out of. And all you do is you put those peels in a little stock pot, just a pot, cover it with water, bring to the boil, and simmer for 30 minutes. The water is going to start tasting like butternut squash, and that's so good in your soups, amazing in your risottos, and really good in sauces. And a lot of people always ask me, well, what do you do with the guts of the squash, like the actual wet part inside and the seeds? You could actually just saute those guts and the seeds in a pan, just a little olive oil. The guts will kind of melt away, and all that's left are the crispy seeds. So it's a good way to kind of use the squash guts. I love squash guts. I know it's a weird name for it, but it's good.
Okay, we knew exactly what you meant. Okay, all righty. Next one, sausage casing. So for example, if you open the sausage, you squeeze the meat out of the casing, what do you do with the casing that's left?
First of all, it's the first time I've ever been asked that. So kudos to whoever asked that. I love the way your mind works. If you think about sausage casing, it's basically pure fat. So you can treat it like bacon, put it into a little pan, and I actually like to put a little splash of water, and it will start rendering the fat, and you'll have sausage fat. That you can toss your potatoes with. You could cook an omelet with. You could do so many things with. So rendering the sausage fat, keeping that in the fridge instead of butter, good stuff.
Okay, let's see, a mango stone or cherry pit?
The mango stone one's going to blow your mind. Are you guys ready for this one? Because you're going to be like, Joel, this is not okay anymore. You've just started a new thing. So if you take your mango stones, which always have so much mango connected to it, which is so sad, you put your mango stones in a pot with a little bit of water and sugar and let them boil for about 45 minutes on low, right? So just kind of simmer away. You will then be able to pick up the actual mango seed itself, scrape off all the mango, and you're left with mango jam that you can do chutneys and salsas and all those things with. So you can scrape the mango seeds itself, and you'll just be left with all the flesh that's usually connected to it. So that's a good question. For cherry pits, throw them, like I said, into some spirits or alcohol. You'll have a cherry pit infused rum or liqueur. It tastes like almonds when they sit around long enough. So cherry pits are a good one.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, stale cereal.
You're kidding. Who said stale cereal? And who brought up, that's too good. I love it. Stale cereal is another one no one has ever asked me for. I mean, listen, to be honest with you, stale cereal is going to go right in my stomach. I'll be honest. I don't care if it's stale. But what I would probably do is I would infuse milk with it and make an ice cream. There's a very famous dessert shop. I lived in New York for 10 years called Milk Bar, and they make a cereal milk ice cream. Because let's all be serious. The best part of cereal is the milk itself. So I steep the cereal in milk, remove the cereal, turn that milk into ice cream by adding eggs and sugar and spinning it, and you have a cereal milk ice cream. So you can just use it as a flavoring, I guess.
Great, thank you. All right, next one, an overripe brown avocado.
An overripe brown avocado, think of overripe avocados like butter. They're basically just fat. So you can whip it into brownies, like chocolate brownies, and make an avocado brownie. It keeps it incredibly moist. I love making things like dressings out of overripe avocados, a green goddess, all that good stuff. Add a little sour cream, basil, mint, lemon juice. Delicious. So overripe avocados are totally edible. They're just a little oxidized.
Great, thank you. All righty, next one, ginger root peel.
Ginger root peel. So what I would do with ginger root peel, and by the way, I don't even peel my ginger. I just grate it on that little microplaner. I chop it up. You really don't need to. But if you are one to peel the ginger, make a simple syrup, which is just 1 part sugar, 1 part water, brought to the boil, and then put the peels in there and let it soak overnight. You'll have a ginger syrup, which you can make amazing cocktails with. You can freeze it and make a granita, ginger granita with. Really good on top of oysters. I know that's very chefy, but it's very good. So ginger root syrup would be great. You can also put it in your tea and just infuse it and then take it out with your tea bag, and it gives it a really good ginger boost, which is nice.
Okay.
Are you putting me to the test today, Anne? This is the most fires I've gotten at this game.
Okay. All right. The next one kind of pings off of that. What do you used tea bags for?
Oh, used tea bags. Get this, you guys. I've heard of spas using it to put on your eyes instead of cucumbers. I'm not saying to do that, but I've heard of it working very well. I like to use tea bags in brines. So exactly like I did here, I would put tea bags in it that have already been used. They still have a little bit of flavor to give, and they'll infuse the actual meat. So imagine like a tea brined fried chicken or a tea brined, T-bone steak. Delicious. You actually get tea notes from it, and it really works. I would also say they're incredibly good infused into a simple syrup for cocktails. I keep going back to cocktails. Something's on my mind here, Anne, today. I love it.
We won't go there.
We won't go there.
All righty. Let's see. The stock that comes with fresh Brussels sprouts.
Oh, the stalk is great. You can peel the stalk, just the outside. The outside's a little woody, tough to chew. But if you peel the stalk, you can slice it very, very thin into little rings. Put it in a saute, a stir fry, something like that. It kind of tastes like water chestnuts. Very crunchy, delicious. I would do the exact same thing with broccoli stalks. So when you have those long broccoli stems, peel them on back. Peel them on back. They're delicious.
Great, thank you. All right, while we're on the peeling topic, we have questions about, I'm gonna group a few together here and you can kind of answer them clustered or individually. So
Okay.
Avocado peels, shrimp shells, so the peel of a shrimp, right? Let's see, banana peels, and those three will work together.
Okay, so for this finale, I'll call it the peel finale. Here we go. So first of all, avocado peels are inedible. I've talked to the avocado board. They don't want people eating the avocado peels. So that one, unfortunately, is out. Compost it. The other two, shrimp shells, don't get me started. So good. You can cook shrimp with the shell on and eat the shell. You've never tried it before, so don't knock it. I know you're like, no way. So crispy, so delicious. I love it. But you can also use the shrimp shells in a stock, and you could melt butter, put the shrimp shells in the butter, let it cool so the butter picks up all the shrimp flavor, blend it in a blender, and make shrimp butter. That is so good on pasta, raviolis, smeared on top of fish. Make shrimp butter. What was the last one? There was one more peel.
Banana.
Oh, banana peels. What a great one to end on. Banana peels. I think banana peels embody trash. Let's be honest. Every cartoon in the world, every video game in the world depicts banana peels as trash. So what I do with banana peels is I scrape off any leftover banana meat that's on the peel. There's always a little bit left. I soak it in a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of brown sugar, and I put it in the oven like bacon. No joke. And they crisp up, really sweet, crispy and delicious. It's on my Instagram. If you go to @JoelGambron, I have a whole video tutorial about it. It's an amazing vegan bacon. You gotta check it out. I will be honest, we are one of the only cultures in the world that don't eat banana peels. We gotta get on that train because it is so delicious. Banana peels kick butt. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, and I gotta do a couple more bonus round
Oh,
here.
bring it, bonus round.
All righty, pistachio shells.
I'm gonna have to say those are inedible. I can't imagine those going down. But I'm gonna say that's inedible. So I'm disqualifying that one. I don't know if that's a stumper because you can't eat pistachio shells. There's no way. I'm gonna go with inedible on that one.
Okay, all right, and I'm guessing this, well, maybe not. The same could or couldn't be true for mussel and clam shells and fish scales.
Yeah, fish scales are actually really good fried and kind of sprinkled over things. They kind of have like this breadcrumb crispy texture, but it's not very every day that you come through fish scales. Mussel shells, clam shells, they have no flavor. Once the mussel and clam is out, it's literally just like putting a stone into the soup or the sauce. So there's no real flavor there, but you could try to infuse it into something. It's just not going to give you a lot of love.
Okay, well, thank you. That was quite the journey.
Whew,
So-
I'm sweating, you guys. That was impressive.
All right, so now we have a question for you of what was, of all your years of being a chef, what has been the most challenging ingredient to come up with a use for?
That's a really good one. I did a cooking show out of Montana, and we didn't know what we were going to cook in the show. It was all about food waste, and we went trout fishing in the show. Actual fly fishing, which I've never gone before. Totally wiped out on the episode. If you want to have a good belly laugh, it's pretty embarrassing. But we caught some trout, and the question was, well, what are we going to make with the scraps? And so I actually came across this idea of taking the entire skeleton of the trout and dusting it in a little bit of flour and deep frying it. A lot of cultures in India, Southeast Asia will fry bones. And once they're fried, they actually break down and they taste like a cracker, and they're delicious. So I would say fish skeleton has got to go up there as one of the craziest, weird things I've ever done. But I will say that paired with a beer, it was pretty money. I loved it.
Great, thank you. And then kind of back to a little bit more of a serious question, and that is, it's kind of a broader question, but how do you use raw vegetables in the crisper drawer once they're starting to spoil, wilt, mold? Is there kind of obviously we could pickle them, as you've shown us, but are there some other things we could do with them?
There's a million things you could do with them. Just because something is soft doesn't mean it's not usable. Again, you can feel the texture and kind of feel, okay, it's soft, but if you smell it, it still smells fresh, right? It smells fine. If you look at it, there's no mold or anything on it. So it totally means it's usable. My best guess for things like this, saute everything in a pan, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of onion, top it with some stock, and then blend it and make an incredible soup out of it. No one will know the difference. If you've ever heard of the phrase when you go to a restaurant, soup of the day, what do you think that's made of? You think that's the fresh vegetables? No, that's the vegetables that's been sitting around in the fridge, and it's not bad vegetables. Typically, the soup of the day is what the chef is most excited for. One of the things I like to say, Anne, is cooking this way, if you ever think about some of the best food you've ever made, it's usually the impromptu, underplanned, not overthought dishes. It's the ones that just kind of come together. And that's what I think is the beauty of this, right? Cooking from scratch, cooking off the hip really is the best type of cooking. And I'll tell you one more thing. I am a resource for you at home. So if you ever find yourself at home, you open up the fridge or the pantry, don't know what to cook, I have an email. It's called Scrap My Fridge. It's on my website. You just click the email, you tell me what you have, and within 24 hours, I will tell you what to make with it. So I'm right here. You have a little chef in your pocket, little Chef Joel in your pocket.
Great, and we have a question of what do you do to preempt food spoiling? So the question is, what's the best way to store cilantro and avocados? And let's add strawberries into that, since those are three things that typically spoil a little faster than we'd like them to. So any tips for what we can do to extend the shelf life?
It's interesting because food waste is tacked by so many different levels, right? It starts all the way at the farmer and the production. There's ways to stop waste at that level, all the way to the point of our plates. And if you think about food storage, that's a huge part of it. Even something like a banana, people don't realize that if you just wrap the tip of the banana, right, the banana won't go brown for 2 weeks longer. It will last 2 weeks longer just by wrapping the tip of the banana. So just learning these little nuances is huge. When it comes to avocado, I keep it out of the fridge. I know that's crazy, but the avocado, it should sit room temperature, again, in a bowl or a plate by itself. When you are able to take the little nub, it's like a little nub off the top of the avocado very easily, you'll be able to see underneath the color of what the avocado is inside. When it turns brown, you know it's there. So that's how I would kind of store avocados. Really simple. What were the other two, Anne? Avocados, berries?
Cilantro and strawberries.
So cilantro, really easy. I wrap in a wet paper towel. So take it right when you come back from the grocery store, take it out of its bunch, wrap it in a wet paper towel, put that in a plastic baggie and poke holes in the bag. Typically, cilantro will go wilty in about 3 days if you don't do it. If you wrap it this way, it will stay good for up to 3 weeks. So putting it in there blocks it, all good stuff. And then strawberries and berries, listen, they're always way better at room temperature. By putting them in the fridge, they kind of get watered down a little bit. But the reality is by putting them in the fridge, they also save their life so much more. So putting them in the fridge, always try and make sure they're elevated, not sitting in a pile of juice. There's a lot of really good containers out there that kind of keep berries off the ground, and they last for a lot longer. So in the fridge, berries will last up to 3 weeks. Outside the fridge, max 3 days. So berries should go in the fridge, even though I'm kind of a berry out of the fridge guy. It's a little secret for everybody.
Oh, so the real thing is to eat them before that's a problem. Is that what
And
I'm
it's a berry, so let's be
Okay.
honest. They'll go down easy. They'll go
Okay.
down easy.
So we have one more question before I think we're going to be close to out of time here. And that is, in your cooking, what's your
Yeah.
favorite ingredient or food to eat and or make?
Well, I studied in pasta, and if I turn sideways, half my body weight is made up of pasta. So I love making fresh pasta. There's something cathartic about it, kind of zen for me. It kind of centers me. And I love the fact that it's just egg and flour, and it can take on any flavor, right? I mean, even if I have carrot peels or chicken bones, I can make an amazing pasta out of those things. So pasta is really a catch-all for everything. So I would say that is my favorite thing to make. My number one favorite ingredient, hands down, is a Meyer lemon. If you've never tried a Meyer lemon, it's kind of a cross between a lemon and an orange. It's a little bit of a softer lemon. I eat them like apples. They're so delicious. And Meyer lemon, when they're in season, which is winter, they just fill up my house. They're my fave.
Well, Joel, that was just incredibly interesting. I think our audience enjoyed it. And I have to say, I certainly did. So that wraps up our time for Q&A with Joel. And if we didn't get to your question, please know that Joel will address any unanswered questions, and his responses will be emailed to all of our attendees. So there could be a question that you wished you'd asked and someone else did. The other thing we wanted to mention is the recipes that Joel used in today's demonstration will also be included in the email. And don't forget that you can hear more from Joel at the Fresh Summit taking place here at Clemson on February 25th and 26th, 2021. The registration link for the February Summit is www.sunocofreshsummit.com. Once again, that's sunocofreshsummit.com. A huge thank you to Joel for sharing his highly energized passion for food and sustainability, to all of you for joining us today, and for Sunoco Products Company for making the Fresh Initiative possible. We hope to see you in February, and in the meantime, be well and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Joel.